Well, here we go with part 9 of Sweet 16's Horror Night History. Yeah. And I hope the audio sync is a little bit better than last time, which was really silly. It actually cut off earlier than it should have because the video was so much ahead of the sound that it ran out before the sound did. So, well, anyway. I was talking about the show, Director's Cut, which was presented, as I was saying, in the lagoon, where the great balls, these huge, enormous testicle balls located out in the lagoon, where they can project images and some pyrotechnics going up in between. So it's great flaming balls of horror in the lagoon that night. That's right, Sweet 16 had balls, man. And it presented video footage of the 4 icons, Jack, the caretaker, the storyteller, and the director, doing their stuff. And little bits and pieces of horror movies and some music and some scary shit. While this was going on, it was a nifty show, ran a little over 10 minutes. And was rather fun, and I could describe... Well, you know, it's like a lot of film clips featuring the characters doing their thing and saying scary things and being scary. But you can see it yourself if you wish to. That's right. Mark and Jen over at Horror Night Nightmares on their channel at YouTube, MZJC, has put up... they were very busy with their video recorder at Sweet 16 that year. They recorded a lot of stuff and shows especially. So they recorded the entire Director's Cut presentation as it was seen that year. And you can actually go and watch it now if you like. Well, wait till you're done watching me. And to make it easy for you in case you're a lazy ass, if you happen to be on my channel, look over down around that direction and you'll see my favorites there on this purple page. You'll see my favorites, and among the last couple of favorites, well, I don't know how many favorites I may have added before you watch this, but you'll find that in my favorites is favorited the Sweet 16 Director's Cut show, and you'll be able to watch it in your entirety, so that's good. Alright, now, the next show from that year is The Arrival. This was the signature show for Sweet 16, and the processions, as I said, would come up Hollywood Boulevard at certain times, would come up to the stage they set up in what is sometimes called the Mel's Diner area, which is the area at the very north, I'm not sure if it's north, south, east, or west, actually, but at the very top of Hollywood Boulevard, just before, just under the lagoon. And if you go to your right, then you'll get what used to be a Mexican restaurant. Back then there was still a Mexican restaurant where the VIP lounge was last year. And then you go off to that, in that direction, you go up to Central Park and all of that. And over here is Mel's Diner behind you to here. And that way will take you back over towards Shrek Alley. So that's where you are, facing where the schoolhouse was, where fear was revealed. Well, they had a big ass stage. That's what they used to have for years. Universal Studios Florida, from, you know, would have bands performing there in the early years of the event. Well, that year they didn't. They had this big stage, and they had a special show called The Arrival. And even today, when you talk about a show in this case, talk about an Arrival style show, because even though the next time they did it, it wasn't called The Arrival, it was called Carnival of Carnage. Yeah. Anyway, the show they had there featured, they had all sorts of props on there might suggest the icons, like a Jack-in-the-Box, for example, a coffin, and then in the center of the stage up rose the Lord of Darkness, you know, the big horn guy from Legend. To use Peter Griffin's description of him, all red, big black horns, and he comes out, you know, Tim Curry. Unlike Legend in the movie, he's all speaking in rhyme like the demon Etrigan from Swamp Thing and DC Vertigo comics, if you like that sort of thing. Yeah. Anyway, so he's speaking in rhyme, and he describes a history of Halloween Horror Nights in verse, and he introduces each icon, and they all come back. They're these sort of handmaidens running around, and they keep repeating every third word of his, and they pour the ashes from the urns from the icons from the past and resurrect them. And the storyteller comes back, and she rips out the man's tongue, and the director comes back, and he has one of his victims for his snuff films, and she's in a bathtub, and he electrocutes her, and the caretaker has a guy on a table to do an autopsy, but he's not dead yet. That doesn't matter. He's still going to do the autopsy anyway. Cut, cut, snip, snip. And then Jack comes back, and he opens up the Jack in the Box, because he thinks outside the box, and inside is a giant blender, and there's some poor asshole in the blender, and he gets blended into nice red liquid. I guess that's how they make the Blinky drinks. I always wondered what they put in those Blinky drinks. They have the same sort of red liquid every year, and they call it something else every year in the Blinky cups. Last year it was Liquid Fear, and I forget what they called it before that, but it's every year they have a different, it's the same damn shit. Some kind of rum, vodka, and the poor sap that got blended by Jack at the Arrival show in 2006. Yeah. Yes. So it's very nice. And then they all get together and stand next to each other in a photo op group shot, smiling and bowing as the Lord of Darkness says you have to choose which one scares you the most. You know, they never seem to answer that question. Unless maybe on Halloween night they answered it, which one would be the scariest, I don't know. But frankly, I would think, I don't know. Good question. Who's scarier? I mean, you could have people argue all night long which of those four people are the scariest. And if you throw the Usher and Bloody Mary and the Terror Queen and Cindy and Eddie and every other could be, would be, maybe aren't, maybe they are icon characters in the past and the future, you can never decide who's scariest. Who's scariest? The guy you have to pay your money to get in. That's scary. Maybe the security cop who strip searches you when you try to get in. I don't know. Well, they don't actually strip search you. They just make you take all your shit and put it in the little plastic thing and then go through the metal detector. What about guys with like lots and lots and lots of piercings? They must have a hell of a time with the metal detector. Okay. Alright. So that was the Arrival show. This too was lovingly videotaped by Mark and Jen and is preserved for their posterity, preserved for posterity at YouTube, and I favorited it as well. So go to my favorites and dig around and see what videos are from for Shadows of Our Past at the Sweet 16. Okay, now continuing. The last show, well actually there's another show besides that. Again, the Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure was this year. I'll save that for a little bit because that was a really, 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 really nifty Bill and Ted that year. A lot of people to this day think that was the greatest Bill and Ted of all time. I'll leave that up for whomever to decide. But there was a fourth unofficial show, as I said, not in the brochure. No, here's the brochure, not in it. No, not in it. Of course, this was not a Peak Night brochure. They may have had a separate Peak Night brochure that might include it. I didn't have the Peak Night brochure because I only went on that first Friday night, September 29th. Right? So, Peak Nights did have Robosaurus, and Robosaurus was done interestingly as a tribute to the then current Universal horror film Land of the Dead, which was, unlike the previous Dawn of the Dead remake, which Universal released and was a remake of George Romero's film, Land of the Dead actually was one of George Romero's own films that he directed in his Dead series, but this was the one that was actually given a big studio release by Universal. he had some problems with that, and there's some reservations about it, but it was what it was. And then he continued after that outside of the big studio system when he made the last two films in his series, which have come out since then, Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead. And God knows he'll probably making dead films until he's dead. Maybe afterwards. Zombie director, that would be nifty, wouldn't it? Okay. So they had music from Land of the Dead playing, and then tying in with Land of the Dead, set in a big city scene, which was in New York area, and they had characters as zombies staggering through the streets, and you have the military having to deal with them, and they send in Robosaurus to kill the zombies. So Robosaurus comes in, and he opens up and breathes fire and picks up cars and eats them and all the things that Robosaurus does. This was, of course, Robosaurus had not appeared in the park since the very early 90s, 92, 93, I think. I'm not sure when he last appeared before this, 94 maybe? It was only the very first years he came back for the first time, and he never was back again after that. May have been as late as 96, but at least 10 years since this beast had been seen in the park. Now the thing has been sold. I think it's out in the desert rusting somewhere. I hope not. I hope somebody's taking care of the dinosaur, cybernetic, bionic beast, because he was so cool, and he is a part of our Horror Nights history. If I had the cash, I'd buy the fucker myself, and you'd see me down I-4 in that bastard. You cut me off, I'll eat your car. Doesn't go that fast, though. It's not insane. Yes. So now we come to Bill and Ted. And Bill and Ted is cool. As I said, this was the great gender identity disorder episode of Bill and Ted, the great sex change, dysphoria. Many consider the greatest ever. Now, it started out with a gag about the program 24 and Jack Bauer. This was, in fact, the 15th anniversary show, even though it was the year 2006, because, of course, it started in 92. And some of the heroes who helped Bill and Ted deal with the bad guys include Captain Jack Sparrow and Elizabeth Swan, isn't her name? Elizabeth Swan? Which is kind of odd, isn't it? If it is, because Elizabeth and Isabella are actually the same name, which means that the character from Pirates and the character from Twilight actually have the same name. Okay. They had Superman, who was done in a sort of way. I'll talk about. They had Selena from Underworld. They had other heroes coming in. I can't read my own handwriting from my notes. Knight Rider and Kit. They had Nacho Libre. Oh yeah, Samuel A. Jackson. All sorts of heroes who would fight on the side of goodness and niceness against the evil. Evil was led by Lex Luthor. The whole idea behind this, Lex Luthor, you see, actually, the whole idea is this was Bill and Ted's return to Universal Studios Florida, naturally, because from 1992, Halloween Horror Nights 2, up to and including, I got a pizza coming, I'm watching for it, up to, I don't think it'll come before I'm through, within the 15 minutes I'm taping this. If they do, they're really fast. I don't think it's going to be a problem. But up to 2001, it had always been done in the amphitheater, which was known as the Wild West Stunt Show. All right. Then, from 2002 through 2005, it was presented in the Toontown Auditorium. Not Toontown, Toon Lagoon Auditorium. Toontown's a different park in a different state. No, Toon Lagoon Auditorium, located at Islands of Adventure. So that's where that had been for you know, for like, what was it, for like 4 years. So this was its homecoming to Universal Studios Florida, and it was in what had then become the Fear Factory. their auditorium. And the shows in the past that were here, they always had a lot of stunts because it was a stunt show setup, stage setup. People would be thrown down the well and they'd splash, the water would come out, and everyone sitting up close to the stage would get wet. That sort of thing would stop happening at this point, because now we're at a different setup for Fear Factor, and they would use this setup for the show from this point onward. Okay, I'm at the time period. I'll come finish Bill and Ted next video. Now I have to go eat pizza.